Hello, welcome back to Geek Warning, the podcast from Escape Collective that discusses all things mechanical in cycling, and sometimes electronic, and sometimes, I don't know.
If you're a listener and you have an intro for us to use, feel free to send it in.
I've got the yips when it comes to intros, Ronan. I'm just...
we're trying to capture what the podcast is in, 5 or 6 words, and words aren't really our strong point.
If you get excited about gear and cycling, then quite simply, I think this podcast is for you.
See, gear could be taken any way. You could mean, just tech globally, or you could mean clothing, or you could mean performance-enhancing drugs.
Anyway. Welcome to Geek Warning. That intro is awful, but yes, I'm Dave Rome, Senior Tech Editor with Escape Collective. Ronan, you're back.
Yeah, I missed a week, didn't I? 2 weeks.
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah,
it might have been 2 weeks. But anyway, good to have you back. We've got some fun things to discuss because you've been away doing something very unexpected. And I'm very keen to talk to you about it because I haven't heard the inner workings of all this. So I'm curious. But yeah, I mean, before we get to that, I guess we have a little bit of a cheeky corrections corner related to someone else's podcast. Marginal Gains podcast, the Silka podcast, Josh Portner. This week's episode, they yet again discussing hookless road. And Josh said some spicy things that upset a few people that honestly are not too different to things we'd covered previously. But yeah, we got thrown, Escape Collective got thrown into the mix of publications that have covered the spicy things that Josh said in a recent podcast. And I guess small little corrections corner is we didn't.
You say that, I've just copped on maybe what happened. We didn't cover his comments.
Yeah.
And so he called us out for covering them, which was inaccurate, and he's baited us into covering his comments.
Oh, now we have.
Because now we have.
All right. So in turn, we've made him correct. Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyway, okay. For those that have no idea what we're talking about.
Corner.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was basically just Josh, had a bit of a rant, a warranted rant about hookless road and the safety concerns associated with that. And I mean, it's probably nothing new for the loyal listeners of Escape Collective because it's a topic we've covered before. And I think, Ronan, you and I are probably in the same mindset still, where it's like for pure road use, hookless road is still not our favorite product out there.
Yeah, and I think, Josh's initial comments was, I was listening to it and just thinking, oh, this can so easily happen where you say something in a podcast and it's not exactly the way you meant it, and then it gets blown out of proportion. His subsequent follow-up comments and podcasts since have been wide of the mark. I think unfair to hookless in many areas, but let's not get into this.
Yeah, let's not get into it. To summarize, I mean, you can.
We have enough hookless content on Escape Collective from over the past 3 years of our existence. So you can go back and check that out if you want our take on it.
Yeah, and to clarify again, like it's purely hookless road is the contentious part of this. I think it's safe to say like have zero issues or concerns with hookless and in gravel or off-road applications where tires are wider, pressures are lower, and but yeah, we didn't cover this most recent round of drama. So there you go, small corrections corner. Anyway. Let's get on to something that's been on my mind, which has been on your mind, Ronan. Well, it's on your mind, and the fact that you've done this is now on my mind. First and foremost, you rode a mountain bike. This is pretty massive news for long-time listeners of Geek Warning.
This is, not only did I ride a mountain bike, but I have now in the past 7 days ridden 3 mountain bikes.
What?
One of which... One of which, start off, none of which was the plan, but one of which was, or is the most talked about mountain bike of 2025, I think.
Yeah. Of everyone on staff, and we have quite a few staff with mountain biking backgrounds.
I think of everyone in this industry.
I didn't have Ronan on my bingo card as being the first person in media to ride BMC's 32-inch prototype. But there you go.
I don't think anybody had that on their... I don't think the bingo cards are printed with that box.
So, all right, let's rewind let's rewind a bit. How did this come to be?
So I was over at BMC in Switzerland last week for a different project, knowing that I was going there and trying to maximize the time I'd be spending away from the desk and that, I inquired if it might be possible to do a behind the curtain series article on BMC's MPEG lab, which sort of initially stemmed from if you remember the old BMC MPEG frames, they were making them there for a while, and it's now sort of turned into their R&D engineering research hub, so to speak. And I've got to tour there previously, but it was off limits, off the record,
Yep.
no cameras allowed.
Yep. That sounds
and
familiar.
all the while you're getting the tour, you're kind of thinking, everybody wants to see this. Let me show people this. And so going back this time, I was like, can we please reconsider the no cameras part and give me the tour again and let me bring it to our audience? And BMC kindly agreed. And then I started pushing my luck a little bit further. And I was like, could I maybe test some of the prototypes that I know you've got sitting in the MPEG lab that I seen the last time, with a couple of other bikes in mind. Long story short, I arrived in Grenchen and sitting around on the first morning, and they said, so you want to ride the new 32-inch mountain bike prototype? And I was like, I am not the best person to be doing this, but I cannot say no. So let's go.
Yeah, okay. And I think they had a hard time understanding that you hadn't ridden a mountain bike in, what, a decade?
I tried to, like, just make my excuses before we even got into cycling kit. And I was like, dude, I have to take this opportunity. I can't say no, but I also do not ride mountain bikes. And after the ride, then they were like, but you do. And I was like, no, I really don't. And like, but clearly you do ride a mountain bike. I was like, I don't even own a mountain bike and haven't had one for at least a decade. And they're like, oh, okay. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I rode the 32-inch, the comparison points that I had to other bikes. Let's just say I skipped the 29er era.
Yeah. How does it compare to a fully rigid 26-inch bike, Ronan?
My mountain bike, my orange C16R that I grew up on was fully rigid, but yeah, that was a Santa bike one year. Got very lucky. But I mean, yeah, that kind of, it's worth mentioning that as well. Like I don't currently ride mountain bike, but I can't really say I grew up in mountain bikes because I never did mountain bike racing or events or anything like that. But yeah, from the ages of 5 until 15, I spent all day, every day when I could on that orange in a forest with trails that we had dug out and made and jumps and just rallying effectively through forest.
Returning to your roots, so to speak.
Yeah, good pun. And so it's not alien to me to be on a flat bar bike in a forest. And actually, I did one mountain bike race once, which happened to be the Marathon National Championships, and I have a Marathon National Championships medal. So take from that what you will.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, what can you tell us about this bike with no comparison points to make to put it against?
So we did. I made a point of getting a comparison point. So the 32-inch was going to be the bike that I was riding. We set it up and rolled out, and I had these. The thing is huge. Like if you stand it up, it's like I'm looking way, way, way up at the front wheel. It's like that's the first point, and getting on it. I moved over to a set of steps. I did actually move over to a set of steps to get myself on.
And it's probably worth noting, I think from memory that prototype was actually made roughly for a rider your height.
Yeah. Well, it maybe was. I think it might have been a medium, and I would have been a large. But
okay, so you're actually even taller than what that bike was intended to be. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And I think initially, like the we had set the saddle height, but the fore after was like all the way forward, and I got on the bike and I was like, "Fuck me, this is unrideable." And then they're like, yeah, we can adjust the saddle back further. And I was like, well, we better try that. And that actually did. Yeah, I was just way too far forward over the front. So we fixed that and headed off to about a kilometer from the MPEG lab. There's like a little trail, and rode out there, kind of just not really feeling much, and then did a couple laps in the 32, swapped in with one of the other guys and did a few laps on the 29er, and then swapped back and finished up on the 32. So yeah, I did make a point of having comparisons on the day, if that makes sense.
As someone that hadn't really spent much time on modern 29ers, and no one spent time on 32ers other than the people about to sell the things. I mean, what were your takeaways? Have you come away thinking that you want a 32-inch? Have you? Yeah.
I think I have, because I think if they release 32s now, I would be. Previously on this podcast, I had said I can't wait for 32s to come because it'll drop the prices in 29ers and then I'll buy a 29er. And having ridden the 32 now, I think I would probably be on the order list for a 32 when they're announced, because, and I mentioned this to someone else and they pointed out this might not be a good thing, and they are right, is that the 32er made me feel like I was a mountain biker, and the 29er reminded me that I'm not.
It masked lack of finesse, did it?
Yes, which I was expecting it to be big, clumsy, awkward through the sort of Titan, not exactly technical, but not easy single track that we did. But it was actually kind of the opposite, in that you just send it, and it kind of made up for all the mistakes that I was making. And
gotcha. Whereas on the 29er, you were the one that was big, clumsy, and awkward.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And
Gotcha.
so I was there with two BMC engineers, and the guy I was alternating bikes with, he was leading through the single track each time. And when he was on the 29er and I was on the 32, and bearing in mind this is their local test lap, granted he wasn't pushing full gas, but he was doing the same on every round. And on the 32er, I was able to keep him in sight by the second lap. When we switched to the 20, when I switched to the 29er and he was on the 32, and he wasn't pushing any harder on the 32, but I was having to work so much harder on the 29er, he was out of sight and almost instantly.
This doesn't bode well for the budgets of many people into mountain biking.
This does not, and apply the caveats that I am not a mountain biker. So Dave, you would do much better than you probably. Yeah,
until there's an incline.
But that was the realization for me. It was like, regardless of whether the UCI bans it or not, for riders who are mountain bike curious, let's say, I think the 32 inch is maybe most beneficial there, because for me, it just gave me the confidence to go ride the technical single track that I maybe might not otherwise have had. And yeah, that could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. If it gives you too much confidence and you eventually run out of talent on a corner, that's not going to end well. But yeah, you mentioned there even the incline, so it was like basically just an up and down lap that we were doing, and it started with a fairly rooted and ripped up at the start drag, basically like a forest path. And on the 32 inch, I had this sensation like, oh, I've good legs today, I feel good. And because I rode the 32 inch first, I didn't really think anything about that. I just sort of just rode up this drag. And then I got on the 29 and I was like, oh, I have bad legs today. Then I swapped back and I was like, no, this feels like good legs. And so it has to be something to do with the 32, the bigger wheels, rolling easier, something. I'm not sure.
Less micro accelerations, probably.
Yeah. Just, whatever was in front of you, just kind of.
Yeah. Didn't sap you. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably worth noting that, we've covered 32-inch wheels previously and relatively recently, because it is a up and coming thing. And I think Travis Brown, who works with Trek Bicycle, and he's been testing these things for years and years and years. Yeah, a remark he said is you can kind of, as a percentage wise, going from 29 to 32 inch is very similar from going from 26 inch to 29 inch. So yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense that you're able to pick up on those differences, and that it did feel like you were on it sort of made your day different based on that wheel size. I mean, it's not such a subtle difference. So yeah,
I kind of came away from it. I was like, having missed the 26 to 29 shift, I wonder, am I just what I'm saying here is basically just exactly what everybody else said 15 years ago about that move.
Yeah.
But I also came away from it more convinced that actually gravel is probably the best use case for 32.
Yeah.
Just because it just rolled subjectively it just rolled so easily. And then there's also, chatting with the engineers there, the contact tire patch, the width is the same if you're using the same width of tire, but with the 32-inch, you're getting a much longer contact patch.
It is, yeah.
And yeah, they seemed pretty certain that there was some sort of grip and cornering benefit from that as well.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I've also thrown a leg over a 32-inch. I mean, all I was managed to do is just do probably 5 or 10 minutes of car park laps, and along with some like some old discontinued like train tracks that I was able to ride across. But I was on a Baum 32-inch gravel bike with like a suspension fork. That was at the Australian Spoken Show. But yeah, I actually came away from that thinking that there is also, as you said, I don't think this is just a wheel size for mountain bike. I think this is also wheel size for gravel, for really any off-road application where suspension travel is limited. And yeah, I think, for all the talk that there was previously of like this 750D wheel set size coming into gravel, I think we can now say that's probably dead, but 32-inch is certainly going to be one that a lot of brands are looking at. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where all this lands. There's still more questions than answers at this moment, but I'm jealous that you got to ride this thing. So well done.
Yeah, and so those were the 2 mountain bikes I rode that day, and now I've got a mountain bike in the test fleet here at the moment as well. Not for review, but as part of my ongoing tire testing. I needed something with more clearance. I needed something with suspension to test a few theories, run a few of our own tests, and so I've also come home with a 4-stroke from BMC for that testing.
Nice.
Which, I mean, in hindsight, it would have been maybe good if I'd have been doing that sort of testing for the past 6 months, because then I would have went to BMC and had the opportunity to ride a 32 with more comparison.
Oh, well.
Already, yeah, but what can you do? Sometimes these things just work out like that.
Yeah. 4-stroke, I had a 26-inch wheeled 4-stroke quite a few years ago. I love that bike. Be nice to throw a leg over one of the newer ones at some point. They've always been pretty solid bikes. So, damn, I seemingly am jealous again. Anyway, I've got enough bikes to ride. I'll be fine.
What time you got some time trial bikes to make me jealous, Dave?
The only time trial bike I've ever owned was also a BMC. I swear this episode is not brought to you by BMC. It was a TT02. So it was in the generation where the TT01 was like that Swiss-made kind of custom order time trial bike. This is kind of like pre-Cadell Evans days. I'd say it's more like Tyler Hamilton Phonak days. And I had the TT02, which is like what everyone on the team, on the pro team rode when they weren't the star rider. So it's like the second tier bike. I had one of those, was an ex-warranty frame, and I turned it into a single speed commuter because it had horizontal dropouts.
I was waiting the whole way through that to like, why did you end up owning this? How? And it all makes sense.
Yeah. So sorry. There you go. The only TT bike I've ever owned, I butchered. So yeah, no, I've never ridden a TT bike for more than like a kilometer at a time.
That generation was. There was one of the two-door riders who was there doing some testing last week also, and he was so young. He kind of BMC had probably only ever had one time trial frame for his entire riding career. And I was like, but I remember when I started cycling like 2002, BMC time trial bikes were like just insane at the time. I think that's the same generation you're talking about.
Yeah, so I think this is closer to like 2008, 2009, but it was like easily the most expensive time. Yeah, 2007, 2008. Yeah, the TT01 back then was just like the most, money no option TT bike on the market. Yeah,
it was worse. It was Vinokurov.
It was Vino. Yeah, it was definitely early days of Phonak. So anyway, memories. All right. Well, yeah, I'm excited to hear that you're on a mountain bike. I think we'll return to this conversation as you get really geeky about it and start running like data acquisition on suspension and all this sort of stuff.
I'm afraid for how much this is going to cost.
Yeah, this is a very, very deep rabbit hole.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, you've got big wheels to roll down it with. All right, and I think it's time for us to have a bit of a PSA, and yeah, it's one that you might have put on the list, which is to talk a UDH full mount, which basically is the newer SRAM style one by derailleurs that bolt directly to the UDH frame. So yeah, it's like sort of transmission or explore derailleurs. And Ronan, why did you add this to the list?
Because I think it's the inverse of what we normally think about when we're talking about torque. So first of all, the torque spec really, really matters on UDH full mount derailleurs, as it does with most stuff these days. And rather than like there being a max torque printed on something, and then you kind of go close to that, but you don't necessarily need to hit the max. And it really very much is a max. The torque spec listed on a UDH full mount derailleur is like you need to do that torque. It's a requirement to do that torque, and if not, yeah, you just get a little bit of play in the derailleur, which is just not great for shifting, but can also start causing wear within the sort of the mount itself.
Yeah,
which
the dropout.
yeah, and the I don't know, but I think the fact that replacement bolt kits for these full mount derailleurs, which are still pretty young at this point, relatively young, the fact that those replacement bolt kits already exist tells me that perhaps this is a common enough issue where maybe full mount derailleurs aren't fully torqued up, and then creating this little bit of wear, and you need to replace the bolt, which isn't like it's like a £20 kit or something.
It is a wear item, that bolt.
Yeah.
It is. Yep, there's like a plastic bushing involved in that bolt, which is sort of made to be the part that the derailleur can move on and sort of swing backwards on, and yeah, it's that is certainly a wear component, but it should be pretty hardy if you have everything torqued up correctly.
I've seen bikes arrive with this nut torque to spec. And the issue is it's not exactly immediately obvious, but once you know that this could be an issue, then it is pretty obvious pretty quickly.
You look for it. Yep. So some background on this. These derailleurs, like, they don't have limit screws. They don't have like a B tension adjust, which sets the derailleur height. All of that's done via like following very specific steps that SRAM lays out, and sort of setting the chain length to a specific length that SRAM calls out as like based on your chainstay length and also the chainring size. And so yeah, all of the position of the derailleur is basically set in this bolt, and following a few steps while you hold the derailleur in a certain position, and then you close down this bolt. And when you torque this bolt, basically what it does is it sandwiches the derailleur onto the dropout. There's also a little knurled ring that's part of the derailleur, and that actually clamps down and sort of bites into the dropout of the frame. And so yeah, when it's correctly torqued, that knurled ring stays fixed and sort of becomes like almost like a permanent part of the frame, and everything else can move around it. But when it's loose, that knurled ring doesn't bite in and can sort of just abrade at the dropout. So yeah, there's a few steps there that are really important, and yeah, I think is it 35 newton meters is where the torque number is at the moment.
Yes, that's correct, Dave. 35.
Yeah, so 35 newton meters requires a pretty big torque wrench to hit. I think it is, for anyone with a bike with one of these, it probably is worth at this point investing in a torque wrench that covers that torque size. So for me, it's the general recommendation is find a torque wrench that goes sort of like between 10 to 50 or 10 to 60 newton meters. Make sure it also does clockwise and anti-clockwise direction, which is a handy, almost required function of that torque range on bicycles. And yeah, most of them you'll probably find like 3/8 square drive for those playing at home. So, but yeah, it's a larger torque wrench, a lot bigger than what most people working on their own bikes would have. But I think it's increasingly important and useful for things like lock rings and cassettes and also bottom brackets and all that sort of stuff. So probably get some use out of it.
Can I give you the your worst nightmare question?
Yeah, you don't have one.
No, I want you to recommend a torque wrench. You've got one recommend. We're not sitting here for an hour with you discussing torque wrenches. I just want which one torque wrench for this specific job do you recommend?
This category of tool is almost like your bike computers. in that I'm just going to sit here with my arms
problem.
crossed and refuse to answer your question. There's a lot in this category. Most of them are from the automotive world. I don't think you need to go with a cycling brand. I think some of the very cheapest options tend to lose the counterclockwise torque functionality, which is why I don't typically recommend like the real generic budget options.
You want that reverse option for like pedal installs and stuff, is it?
Bottom brackets predominantly. But it's also, yeah, I mean, it can be helpful for like UDH hangers, which I believe off the top of my head are actually reverse threaded. There's a few functions where you want them. Yeah, I historically used to recommend a certain CDI, which is an American company owned by Snap-on, an analog torque wrench from them, which I believe was 10 to 50 Newton meters. But that tool has become increasingly hard to find if you're not like if you don't have access to like a tool truck. So I'm actually a little bit lost on this exact answer because the answer unfortunately is quite regional. So the recommendation for like Australia would be different to the UK and different to the US. So and then it would change from like month to month depending on what's actually available in stock. So yeah, I don't have a great answer. And because of that, it's sort of in the end, it's sometimes simplest just to point people towards like a Pedro's or a Park tool, even though you're paying bicycle tax on it. It's a known quantity. It's available. It's a consistent model, and it does all the things. So yeah, unfortunately, not a super easy one to answer. I have been getting a lot of questions lately about Weir's torque wrenches, and in this category, it's not my top pick. They're overly large given the torque range. There has been some reliability issues with the safety torque range of Weir torque wrenches. I've heard a few reliability issues related to them, and in my experience, they're not necessarily any more accurate than cheaper options. So yeah, not to dismiss a single option, but yeah, Weir does get a lot of attention in the cycling world as being a very desirable brand. But yeah, I'm a bit lukewarm on that specific product from them. So
yeah, I have a couple of Weir torque wrenches, and I wouldn't buy them again.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, my benchmark, if I had to pick one, it's one that no one listening hopefully buys because it's hideously and horribly expensive. But Snap-on Digitorque angle torque torque wrench in the 3/8 inch is, I believe, an untouchable benchmark in the category. But I also think I paid about 1,200 Australian for my torque wrench. Yep.
I'm just trying to work out what's the suitable awkward pause duration.
I think it's still going.
Yeah, I think we can let that one sit.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, sorry. I've really given a lot of non-answers, but brands CDI and Norbar are sort of two leading brands in the torque wrench space. So if you are looking for like a pro quality tool that and you've got a few $100s to spend, I'd look at either of those brands. Both, unfortunately, distribution on both of them is pretty terrible, and both are owned by Snap-on these days. So kind of hard for a consumer purchase, but worth looking into.
Yeah, frustratingly, the Norbar torque wrench I have is a much smaller range. Is it maybe 4 to 20 or something like that?
Yeah.
But it's at least 10 years old, and every time I like do a comparison in terms of like other torque wrenches and new ones and various ones I get my hands on, it's still as accurate as it was day one. I just can't get a Norbar in a bigger range.
Actually, I've thought and thinking about it while we've been discussing this. I do actually have a recommendation. If you're on a tight budget, it's not what I use anymore. It's where I started 15 years ago or something. 20 years ago now. But yeah, the one I would recommend is Park Tool actually do it. It's a beam torque wrench, and it goes 0 to 60 Newton meters. A beam torque wrench is like has no mechanical moving parts. It just uses material flex and like an indicating arm. Very, very simple. Doesn't need calibration. Doesn't have any ratcheting feature. Doesn't have any click feature. You just literally have to watch the needle hit the number you want. But yeah, Park Tool TW-2.2 is the value pick. That is just a a blunt approach to this sort of torque range, but it does work. So if anyone that wants one for home use, I'd probably point you towards that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the beam torque wrenches. I just like the definitive quick.
Yep.
You've had it.
Yeah. It can be awkward to like do up a crank bolt to like 50 Newton meters while looking at side on to see that you like it can, especially for cyclists who aren't some of us aren't the strongest in the upper body, and so yeah, it can be quite an effort to use, but yeah, it's a good affordable approach that there's no questions over whether you're in the right vicinity of torque.
I mean, the normal operating window for my arms is 2 to 40 Newton meters, so I have to close eyes and squint and everything.
Yeah.
Getting back to the PSA here, though, for a second, maybe also worth just pointing out that not the same torque, but the same PSA applies to UDH mounts with more standard derailleurs, and so I think the torque on those is 25 Newton meters. Yeah, the hangers themselves. Yeah, I've seen those come loose also. Once was on the bike that I used for tire testing, and I kind of wondered, was it something to do with just having the through axle in and out so many times? I'm chatting like, could have been upwards of 100 times per day. If that was part of the reason. But then I've seen bikes delivered with that loose, and yeah, again, you just start getting all sorts of issues.
Yeah, you do. I mean, that reminds me, so part of the UDH design is that if the derailleur takes a hit from the front, so say like a rock strike or something like that, the UDH is actually designed to pivot backwards or around, and so the derailleur will actually end up sort of, say you're using a normal derailleur with a UDH frame, the derailleur will actually end up like further away or further wrapped back around the cassette than ideal, and your shifting will be compromised. So yeah, if you've sort of taken a hit and the derailleur is straight, like you put a hanger on it, it's still straight, but all your shifting's still bad, just check that the derailleur hanger itself hasn't pivoted in the dropout. Yeah, to reset it, it's pretty simple. You just undo the mounting bolt for the derailleur hanger and let the chain tension bring it back to its front position, and then retorque it. Very similar applies if you've got a full mount system like the Explore or Transmission. That derailleur as well will pivot backwards, and you sort of, for that, you just undo the through axle of the wheel, and you'll see the whole derailleur spring back to its position. But yeah, I think that's a little something that a few people have been caught out with chasing bad shifting without knowing that that's a feature.
I think it gets back to as well where you want a torque wrench or a reverse option, because the spec on the UDH hangers is 25 Newton meters, but they're also, are they plastic?
Official SRAM ones are,
yeah, and
dual component, dual material.
You can bust the threads in them pretty easily.
Yeah. So they're aluminium and plastic molded together, but yeah, they're robust until they're not.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, yeah, there you have it. Something applicable to pretty much every new mountain bike on the market and an increasing number of drop bar bikes. So hope that helps at some point. All right, let's move over to our tech news corner, which there's been a few new bikes released. Things are starting to get busy again after a few quiet weeks on the news front. First and foremost, this one sort of came out within a matter of hours of our last podcast, and so we, at the fear of upsetting an embargo date, we didn't cover it. But big news out of Shimano with their first redo of a SPD cleat in potential decades, and a new gravel cleat that sees the surrounding tread disappear in place of like a pontoon system that sort of brings the tread platform as part of the cleat. Probably worth noting that this isn't new. Shimano have done this before, but it's coming back in a different application. I like it. Ronan, have you seen this?
I've seen it. I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to it, but I've seen it.
Yeah, so the idea is they've released a new gravel-specific S-Fire level shoe, so it's the first time they've got like a top-tier gravel race shoe, and it doesn't have the usual tread blocks surrounding the cleat. Instead, the cleat gives you those tread blocks. And the idea there is that like in an SPD pedal system, the tread blocks actually are what kind of give you the stability of the pedal. So you really need those
or
tread
the or
blocks
the instability.
or the instability. So yeah, you really need the tread blocks to be like a precise height in relation to the cleat in order to give you like a locked in feeling with the shoe that doesn't have like unwanted side to side sort of off axis movement, what I would call toggle. But at the same time, if you make that tread height too high, then you can't get out of your pedal or you can't get into your pedal. So it has to be real precise. And yeah, some shoes get it right, some shoes don't. But most importantly, the ones that do get it right, if you use that shoe enough, you'll eventually wear down the tread block until it's no longer right. And then your system has toggle in it. So I actually just love the idea that Shimano's created a way that makes that a wear part that's more easily replaceable. Some other City has done that. Bont have replaceable tread as well. Like there's replaceable tread does exist, but I don't think anything's quite as simple as just replacing the cleat pontoon thing that they call it.
I'm wondering, could you, some of those shoes that have replaceable treads, could you remove that?
I think so.
And
yeah, it's
and
on
even
my
if they
mind.
aren't replaceable, could you just? I've cut treads off shoes
Yes.
in the past.
Yeah, you could grind them down. I think 100% you could do that. I've got some Bonts here that I've been using, some off-road shoes from them, and that has tread that's like bolted in place, but it's also glued in place, so you have to like heat it up in order to remove it. But their whole idea is that it's replaceable, but you can also like shim it. And so like if you had to run cleat shims, you can kind of adapt the height of the tread. I think Specialized might have something similar as well on a certain gravel shoe of theirs. Haven't used it, but so I think you could just rip off. Yeah, in my mind, I'm thinking I could just take the tread blocks off that Bont shoe and just put this new Shimano pontoon system in place and run it. And I think that's cool. As a junior, I was a customer of Steve Hogg, the famous bike fitter. And he put cleat shims under my left shoe at the time, and that was fine on the road, but on the mountain bike it caused all sorts of havoc because it affected the stability of the pedal. And so I used to like use shoe goo on my tread to like custom build out the tread to interface correctly with the pedal system, and I'd have to redo it every like 2 or 3 weeks because it would wear down or rip off. And at the time I used to hear of like Specialized sponsored athletes having custom shoes made with like inner sole, plates put between the sole and the upper of the shoe, and I was so jealous of that. And that kind of, this pontoon system got me thinking like, if I was still using cleat shims, which I don't anymore, but if I was still in that boat, this is just such an easy solution to that you could just shim up the pontoon. So,
but I mean, you would have to. It would be a DIY job. There are no shims available to fit this new
not
system.
yet. But I think it's a pretty simple thing. Like I think a bike fitter could just cut some plastic shims to fit, and it would just go beneath the pontoon, which sits beneath the cleat. So I think there's other niche benefits to the system, but I think fundamentally it's like making an easy wear item replaceable, I think is pretty cool. And
what I wasn't clear on with the new system is if it limits in any way cleat adjustment, like side to side or rotation in any way. It kind of the new, it moves with the cleat that's kind of unchanged.
Yeah, I think that's all unchanged in that sense. I mean, there has never been that much side to side movement adjustment in an SPD system. There's basically no angle adjustment in an SPD system, so I think that hasn't necessarily been corrected. But I think in terms of the adjustment range, I don't think anything has changed in that regard. But I think it will be interesting to see how other brands implement this. I think like providing like a flat enough or the right shape of sole is going to cause problems, just as it has for like road systems. For years people fought with like putting speedway cleats onto small size shoes, and the curvature of the sole would affect how the pedal did or didn't clip in. So maybe we'll run into similar issues like that again. But for now, it's just Shimano doing a dedicated shoe for this. But dare I say, we'll see it more widely than it currently is. The other bit from Shimano I kind of hinted at the beginning, which is there's now a new multi-entry cleat. So they've previously had multi-release cleats, but they've sort of got a new cleat that profiles the front edge of the cleat, and the idea is that it just makes it much more easy for how you can enter the pedal, an SPD pedal. So you can sort of go heel first, toe first, and sort of it does open up the window for how you can get into your pedals. I haven't used it yet. I'm kind of eager to try it, but it's pitched as like an answer for beginner riders, but they're also claiming it has advantage for like experienced mountain bikers that just panic stab at their pedals as they're sending it down rocks. So I think it could be good for potentially everyone, but
cyclocross maybe.
Cyclocross as well, and looking at the shape of the cleat, maybe it could potentially even be a bit more lenient in terms of mud. But I'm keen to try this out, so hopefully get my hands on some of those soon as well.
Dave, if I'm honest now, you've slightly thrown me on that. I think you said there's not much angle adjustment in SPD cleats, and rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but I've been forcing plenty of angle adjustment into my SPD cleats for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe in hindsight, this may be part of the reason I broke my leg. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I think in the most simple way of the design there isn't, but I think if you're able to shift like it's
the bosses that you're
it's like the female part of the thread, or like the receiver of the cleat. I think if you're able to angle that, then yes, you have angle adjustment. So I think it depends on the shoe. Like some shoes actually put like that cleat, the receiver plate of the cleat. Some shoes put that into like a recess, and it's kind of locked into a straight line, and it only can slide fore and aft. But I think other shoes might have more adjustment. And so, Derek, what shoes are you on that you've managed to?
I have North Waves that are my go-to, and I have Specialized.
Interesting.
I forget the model name, but
yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, I wouldn't associate SPD cleats as having as much angle adjustment as a 3-bolt, but
no.
But judging by the shoe,
and a 3-bolt doesn't have as much as a speed plate.
Correct. Yeah, but yeah, I think there's more than none. Looking at how you set your shoe up, so
considerably more than none.
Yes. Anyway, all right. Well, yeah, I think that's it for SPD news. But yeah, let's talk new bikes, because there are a couple of new things happening in that front. Pinarello, they've got the new Dogma F series. To be fully truthful, this one confused me a little bit. I thought there was a new Dogma F, confusing. Which is
that just happened last year.
Yeah, so the Dogma F came out last year. It's their top end race bike. It's what Ineos rides, for now. And I think that's the top end race bike. But the F series is like the trickle down of that top end bike into lower price points. And so there's like what is it, like F2, F3, F5, F7, F9. And yeah, it's actually quite a large range that I don't hear a lot about, but they've updated the more price point versions of these bikes. So
basically what we're talking about here is the Pinarello Prince, and they've renamed
effectively. Yeah. Yeah. So Pinarello have
did. I mean, they did that 2-3 years ago when because this is like the second generation of the F series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a very long history of doing this. Like I remember working in a Pinarello dealer like 15 years ago where this was a thing, where they would take like the previous generation race bike and reuse the mold of that with a lower grade carbon fiber and sell that as like the Prince, or something else with a different name. But yeah, it's sort of all now under the Dogma F naming. But yeah,
I don't think that's happening here though. This isn't the old.
It's not the
Dogma
old mold.
F mold.
No. It's takes cues from the Dogma F, but it is its own unique design. So yeah, so these new integrated cockpit, new dropouts, new redesigned fork, new head tube, new lighter weight headsets. It is a wholly new bike. So on top of all those changes, there are 3 different layups, 3 different price points of layup. So the top end would be the F9 and the F7. And then there's like a second grade of the found in the F3 and F5 bikes. And then there's like an entry level grade carbon fiber for the F1 bike. So yeah, cheapest option is the F1. I'm looking at the pricing. A complete bike for about $3,250, which is less than what I would associate Pinarello with.
Yeah, I looked at the F7 Ultegra Di2 build,
Mm.
and the F7 Force Axis build, and they're both priced the same, and other manufacturers and brands differentiate the pricing on those two specs. But yeah, with a quick check, like the F7 Force Axis is the same price as a Canyon Air Road, with the same grip set, but it would come. The Canyon would come with higher spec wheels. But
yeah, okay.
I think it's just. I think Pinarello have figured this out, this whole bike industry thing. Honestly, because I mean, we talked about the Dogma X quite a bit here, and how that just looks like it's an endurance bike that looks like they're a race bike, and that's kind of right. It's
kind of what we are always asking for.
Yeah,
or what I'm always asking for.
And I wouldn't go as far as saying asking for, but I think that's what will sell better. Is there's a bike we're about to talk about next that I think is not getting it as right.
Interesting.
Is maybe a better bike, but is not maybe going to sell as well. Anyway, getting back to these new Pinarellos, it's confusing. You've got the Dogma F and you've got the Dogma F series.
Yeah.
But if you're now someone who, like most of us, isn't going to be buying a Dogma F at the premium price point, that's it. You can have your Pinarello Dogma. It might be an F1, an F3, an F7, an F9, whatever, but it looks the same, and it's at a price point that is comparable.
Yeah.
In some cases, even cheaper than other brands, which is not. Like, Pinarello didn't always have options like that for the wider market. Like, even the lower spec Pinarellos before felt like you were being price gouged with some of them.
Somewhat, now, you're paying just for the brand, not necessarily getting the bike in return for it. I'm going to say something which is going to, because I can never seem to talk about Pinarello without saying something that gets me into trouble. I would say Pinarello has a history of having too many choices, whether it's in frame sizes or whether it's in colors or vice versa. I think they're doing it again with this. I think there's too many layup options that is causing for confusion amongst tech editors whose job it is to understand product lineups. For me, I think seeing 3 different layups in what is effectively a second tier range is too many. I think they could really afford to just have 1 or 2 different layups here and just differentiate based on spec of the bikes. Just have different models, price points with different spec. I think changing what the frames are in terms of the weights and the layups that they have and the whole story around that, I think gets pretty confusing and unnecessarily so. What do you think?
I take your point, Dave, but I think where previously, Pinarello had all these options and you looked at them all and you went, these are all overpriced. And I'm not saying that the new range of bikes is cheap, but I think if you're now a stockist, you've got something to offer a lot more price points. You've maybe that confusion just helps in some way, and that you get a customer coming in off the street, and before they might have had to start looking at all the brands that you had, you can now sell them a Pinarello, and you don't really get into what the layups are or any of that confusing stuff. You just say, oh, here's a Pinarello Dogma at budget that you're shopping with.
I guess that's my point, is like, if you were a customer looking for a Pinarello and you're like, I want an F series Pinarello with 105 DO2, you're not necessarily going to be aware or understand that, like, oh, if you spend up and you get the Ultegra version, which is, $2,000 more or whatever, you actually get a lighter weight frame. I think it just confuses things. I think it just is a simpler conversation for a dealer to have. If it's like, yep, spend extra, get the Ultegra and the better wheels, or, spend less and get 105 with a slightly heavier wheel. I think then having the whole conversation about very, very slight differences in the frame that the person can't see, it just complicates things beyond what it needs to be. But anyway.
Is that not what we have here? It's like, it's both the spec level and the layup.
It is.
That increases or decreases with the...
It is. I'm just saying, ditch the layup choices.
But I mean, that then, if you either go for the lower spec layup, which is across all the bikes, and you start getting back at, whereas at the moment we've got a layup to match each price point.
Yeah, it's confusing.
I think if you've only got one layup, you've got. I don't think it is. I think it's less confusing.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm just
More
thinking
confused.
of myself being in a retailer being like, oh, well, the T700 layup for your F5 and your F3, is going to be 100 grams lighter than the F1 frame. Like, I don't know. I just think it's an unnecessary conversation. Speaking of, we should move on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on.
Ronan, you hinted at this before, but there's another bike that is quite interesting that is in a category that I have been quite vocal about there being a lack of options in, which is kind of in sporty endurance road bikes. And Scott.
Is it a new category?
It's so not a new
race,
category.
We have gravel, we have all road, we have endurance. Now we've got sporty race endurance.
No, delete all road. Let's just delete it. Okay. I think all road is endurance bike, is a modern endurance bike.
All roads lead to Rome.
Yes, something like that. Anyway, new Scott Addict, which, speaking of confusing naming conventions, not to be confused with the Addict RC. So Scott Addict is the company's endurance bike, which kind of took the place of the old Solace. The Addict RC is their lightweight clamming race bike that we had a review of on the website earlier this week. Very different geometry, different purpose. One fact to help differentiate the two. The new Addict endurance bike with 0 millimeters of spacers, so just slam stem, is the same height handlebar as running an Addict RC with 35 millimeters of spacers. So there's basically, put another way, stack height's roughly 35 millimeters higher on the Addict versus the Addict RC.
And presumably the reach is slightly shorter also.
Correct. Reach has been shortened. Compared to the Addict RC, it's shorter. Compared to the previous Addict, it's also shorter, and also taller in stack. So, they have gone further down the path of making this more comfort focus for everyday humans. I think it's. I don't know. You mentioned that it sort of misses the mark for you. I was looking at this and really liking it. But why does it miss the mark for you?
No, the opposite actually. It hits. I think it hits the mark on paper. This is kind of what you would be looking for in a bike like this, but it misses the mark in terms of what you have to explain this bike to sell it versus a Dogma X maybe, which sells itself just sitting there because of the way it looks.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a cool bike. It's proper endurance road bike. It's 38 mil tires. Yes, integrated cockpit in the front for most models, or at least the higher end models. But for me, the geometry looks really good. Like the stack and reach numbers look right where I want them to be for this category. Like a good amount of stack, which I think too many bikes don't offer. It's competitive frame weights, like sub 800 grams for the top end frame in a medium. There's storage in the down tube, a little bit different to how most brands approach it.
It looks problematic to me.
They're all problematic in some ways, but this one, just you access it through the bottom side of the down tube, just above the bottom bracket. So like your bottle cages are uninhibited. Like there's your bottle cages mount to the frame as any other non-storage bike would. You access your spares on the bottom side of the down tube, which is interesting. I'd really like to see how the system works, but
to me, I just think they're always, and perhaps I just get over enthusiastic with the storage, but it's usually you're trying to squeeze the little bag of spares into the down tube, and at least it's a fairly wide opening on the down tube.
Yeah.
Whereas this looks like a tighter fit, more awkward area to get at.
Yes. I would say we're coming to an age now where as more and more bikes add this feature to them, we're starting to see some shitty options come in. Like the Cervelo Asparo 5, it's a very narrow aerodynamic down tube, and they've squeezed storage into that, and I find it pretty damn fiddly to use versus like my own gravel bike is a Santa Cruz Stigmata, and that's got like the same storage hatch that they have on their mountain bikes, and I can put like an electric inflator pump in there. I can put a jacket in there if I wanted to. Like it's really easy to get in and out of. But I think as we're seeing more minimalist road bikes get these features. I think we're seeing some pretty compromised solutions that make less sense.
This Scott one has me thinking of those urban myths where someone has presented themselves at A&E and had to explain how the object ended up where it did.
Just the light bulb and the X-ray.
How did that get there?
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
How are we going to get it
Yeah,
out?
yeah. I mean, funnily enough, Scott's press pack even has photos that kind of remind me of that. They're like X-ray style photos, so that's quite funny that you say that. Yeah, I mean, I guess the final point on this bike is the bottom bracket continues. It's a Scott thing. They kind of introduced it with Shimano. The PF86 bottom bracket, the Shimano press fit, that continues in this bike. So I think that these days is a deal breaker for some, but I'd probably say as long for people running Shimano bikes, it probably shouldn't be a deal breaker. Those bottom brackets, generally speaking, are pretty damn reliable and fairly simple to work on with some dedicated tools. I would say the compromise is if you want to run like a SRAM crank with a larger spindle, then you tend to, I don't know. In my experience, I guess that you tend to see a few more issues with the space available for the bearings in there. But even the latest
see a lot more bottom brackets.
Yeah. But even the latest dub bottom brackets for that standard seem to be better than what bottom brackets of the past were. So I would say even that issue is not as bad as it once was. But that's perhaps the only thing of this bike that I'm looking at going like, they were so close. But yeah, I suspect it shouldn't be a deal breaker if you're looking at Shimano bikes.
I want to go back to my earlier point as well about you need to explain this bike to sell it. Like, to be clear, I'm fine with that. I think the benefits of a bike, when you have to explain them, usually tend to be better than the ones that are aesthetically beneficial. And if all brands go down the road of let's just make this look special rather than ride special, that's a slippery slope as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm in two minds about whether Scott's naming convention here, because like we have previously said, like give your endurance bike the same name as your race bike, so it makes it more attractive. But at the same time, it causes confusion, like we're seeing here. So I'm lost on that one. But I would say I am liking some of the features in this, like they've designed the seat post to flex forwards along with backwards, which just makes so much sense from a comfort point of view. And another thing with that seat post, it's D-shaped and it's shared. The shape is shared with the Addict RC, so it's like not yet another shape in the market. I like that they've kept some compatibility there. So
I don't think the sharing the name makes sense unless they share the look also.
Yep. So yeah, different ways to name bikes, but there you go. The Scott Addict has very little to do with the Scott Addict RC. But certainly a bike worth looking at if you're sort of in the market of like, if you're looking at like bikes like the Cervelo Caledonia or Giant Defy or what else is there? Like the
MB
if you
just don't race bikes. If you don't race your bike, this is a bike to look at. Yep,
the 51 Seeker. I'm gonna toss this one into the ring of new frames to consider as well. It looks good to me. So cool. I think we're waiting on a test sample of that. I think Suvi is going to be testing a bike once they have one available in her size. So that's a review a little while away, but we are going to be working on that in the near future. Cool. All right, Ren, I think it's time for us to head over to our members only section for Ask a Wrench. This week I am joined by Zach Edwards. But before I do, I thought it might be worth another shameless plug, because another big feature that I've spent a few months working on is ready to be published and should be live at the time that everyone's hearing this, which is a test of fake chains. So I'd seen previously GCN had done a feature about fake Shimano chains and why you should avoid them.
I thought you meant like Gucci chains or something. Okay.
No, bicycle chains. GCN did a video on this about counterfeit chains, and they sort of showed the physical. They showed the cosmetic differences, and then they bound them to the bike and sort of spoke about the shift differences they could feel, and then warned people of fake chains. I wanted to take a step further to actually like figure out how bad these chains were or whether they're unsafe. And so, yeah, I bought a few and bought one from AliExpress, one from eBay. The eBay one I actually thought would be real. It wasn't in turn. And yeah, basically sent a pile of chains off to Adam Kieran at Zero Friction Cycling to do some testing for me. So he did durability testing on the chains in a controlled manner and in the way he tests chain loops. And then he also did like ISO type strength testing on the chains once they had been worn. Short answer, you should be scared of fake chains, and yeah, I think the findings are pretty stark and pretty interesting, and yeah, that article is now live, but yeah, I'll send people there. Otherwise, I might just tell you the answers in case you don't want to read the article once we head over into the members only section. So should we do that? Should we head over there now?
I think we need another teaser. Like, what's at risk here? Is it drivetrain wear or is it teeth?
All the above.
Okay.
Yep.
Teeth wear.
Teeth wear on your cassette and in your mouth. Yep. So yeah, I think it's a feature worth looking at. It's not overly long. It's a quick read. But yeah, I think it's one that has had a fair bit of work put into and answers some questions that people aren't aware of. And I think most importantly, I think people buy these chains thinking they're getting a good deal without necessarily thinking that these are counterfeited items, because yeah, I mean, it seems crazy that we're in a day and age where bicycle components are counterfeited, but it's a legitimate thing.
I presume you've also like described how to spot a counterfeit.
Yeah, I've described how to spot these counterfeits as far as Shimano chains go, but fundamentally it can be hard to pick when you're shopping. And so, simple answer, just don't buy from dubious sources. And unfortunately, when it comes to products like SRAM and Shimano, stores like marketplaces like eBay, Amazon, AliExpress, and Temu are these days dubious sources. Yeah, I think even the likes of Amazon have shown time and time again that they're not as proactive at stamping out counterfeits as they should be, and they do let third party sellers on their platform that do things, and yeah, these sellers can sort of pop up and disappear, and you know, Amazon might close them down, but that might be, you know, after they've sold 200 or 300 of these items to unsuspecting buyers. So yeah, I would caution, just buy from authentic sources, your local bike shop if you have to. Yeah, otherwise big cycling focused online retailers are another option. But yeah, just stop buying big name cycling components from dubious places.
Speaking of teeth, last week's performance process was with Jason Henry, who is my dentist, but we'd been meaning all year to do it.
The things you'll go to avoid paying a bill.
Yeah, he actually became my dentist when I went to him for a second opinion on a procedure I had been recommended.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, I've walked myself into a corner here. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
you have a podcast about teeth.
No, but before that, I just I respected his second opinion more than I did the original opinion, and so he became my new only opinion. Yeah, yeah, it was all about what damage high carb or adequate carb or whatever you want to call it fueling might be doing to our teeth these days, and so we have an interesting episode on, first of all, what the risks are, what damage can be, and how to mitigate it, because adequate fueling is also something that you want to be doing when you're on the bike, and we've written an article about that also. But speaking of dubious sources, this week's episode of Performance Process is about creatine and whether it is the miracle supplement that millions on social media would have you believing these days. And we also briefly touch on how to find sources, creatine supplements that actually contain creatine, which you would think would be a bare minimum of a creatine supplement, but seemingly they don't all actually contain creatine. Sometimes you're just paying for powder.
Yeah, wild. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, Performance Process. Check it out. It's every week at this rate. And yeah, there's a lot of content there that you just don't find elsewhere. So if you're not already a member, then please head on over to escapecollective.com/join, become a member. And then that way you can, within a minute or two, sign up and be back here to listen to the member only section that we're about to head into. So yeah, I'll give a very quick summary of what that chain article involves, but also, yeah, Zach Edwards and I answer some tech questions from members related to chain waxing in hot conditions, wheels with creaking spokes, and setting up a kid's bike for an easier shifting experience. All right, Ronan, thank you. I think it's time we head on over to the members only section.
My daughter's bike was forgotten at school yesterday. It sat out all night in the rain, so the shifting is not going to be any easier on it.
You need to listen to this episode of Ask a Wrench.
I've been considering electronic shifting for a while. It might happen.
Oh no! All right, let's head over there. Thanks, Ronan. All right, we're in the members only section. Our geeky after dark section. It's actually like, I think the lights are brighter here than they are in the previous section. So after dark doesn't really make sense. It's like under inspection. But anyway, yeah, that chain article of mine, which is hopefully now live as we're talking, basically the findings were is that the fake chains failed to make it out of the first block of zero friction cycling's test, which means both fake chains, even though they were both noticeably different chains from what I would say different fake manufacturers, they both failed in a way that make them the worst thing that zero friction cycling had ever tested, each of them.
I was going to ask you to put that in context. The worst thing that zero friction has ever tested is quite stark. That is enough context, but maybe just like what does the first stage mean? Or
yeah, so to give you some idea on that, so zero friction cycling, Adelaide based in Australia, lab that kind of run a pretty blunt instrument where they use friction to kind of understand the efficiency of chain loops. And so they basically run a bicycle on a motor driven indoor trainer. So like there's a motor putting 250 watts through a bottom bracket crank, and that is turning a real bicycle drivetrain. And he uses a control chain. So he uses Shimano Ultegra 11-speed chains, and then changes up the chain loop and basically runs them through like these 1,000-kilometer long blocks. That the first block, 1,000 kilometers, is clean, as in it's just the chain lube. So yeah, the chain is prepped, like stripped back to bare metal, and then the chain lube is applied like typically with an ultrasonic. So he knows the distribution is really good on the chain on that. Waste a lot of chain lube. And then the chain's mounted, 1,000 kilometers, no dirt added, clean drivetrain. And then the next 1,000 kilometers would test with like a controlled amount of grit added to it to see how well the chain lube would clear the grit or handle the grit, and so on and so on. So each 1,000 kilometers. And so, yeah, basically for this test, we had Durace 11-speed chains, both real and fake. And we used a finish line dry chain lube as the control. Not the best performing, not the worst performing, but just a pretty common lube that kind of aligns to what a lot of people may use. The authentic Durace chain with this chain lube went for 3,300-ish kilometers. I've got the real number in the article, but yeah, so it made it through the dirty block and continued on. And his previous test of that chain lube on an Ultegra chain was like about 200 kilometers less than that, so 3,100-ish. So yeah, aligns to what we know. A Durace chain lasts longer than an Ultegra chain. All good there. But then the fake chain, and this is where things get quite alarming. The two fake chains, again, very different chains, but both came in packaging that claimed to be a Durace chain and bought from stores that claimed to be selling me a Durace 11-speed chain. They both failed the 1,000-kilometer clean block. And to put that in perspective, the chain that is nearest to this in terms of zero friction cycling's rankings was an Ultegra 11-speed chain tested bare metal from the start.
Lube.
So like stripped down in no lube, all lube removed, and then just metal on metal ground up at 250 watts. That still outperformed both of these fake chains with clean new lube applied.
When you say fail, like did they break or what? What is a fail?
So a fail is it's basically when the chain is worn out. So it's to 0.5% elongation is what zero friction cycling is testing. So both chains hit their 0.5% wear allowance with within 1,000 kilometers with no dirt added. So yeah, it's add some grit, you're gonna kill that thing real quick. But yeah, it's basically
then what that says is best case scenario, you get 1,000 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
Like not only best case scenario, but lab case scenario where you're
sort of if you were to degrease the thing every ride and make sure no grit got
and
on
only
it,
ride
you
indoors,
probably get about 1,000 kilometers out of this chain. Yeah. Put another way, the authentic chain lasted more than 3 times the distance, despite having grit and all this other stuff added into the mix. So, who knows what the difference would be in a clean environment, but it's more than 3 times.
And what that means is, for me, whatever you're saving by buying a counterfeit chain, you're either losing it and how often you have to replace that chain if you're replacing it when required, or you're doubly losing because the wearer is likely to also wear your cassette and chainring.
Yes. Yep. And then if that weren't enough, strength testing. So Adam Kieran's jig can only test a chain in a direct path. So it's not really loading up the chain in a way that a chain would normally fail, which is like when you have the chain really diagonal or when you're shifting it, where you'd pop the rivet out. So it's not really testing that. It's just a straight pull. There was enough difference there that, both fake chains failed ISO standard pull test. The real chain, despite having done 3 times the distance at that point, survived and passed ISO testing by quite a while. On top of that, he also did test the elasticity of the metal. So basically put it under a pull load and then see whether the metal itself had stretched. And again, the fake chains actually showed signs of yielding at really low power output, while the real authentic chain actually held, basically didn't stretch at all until really close to its failure point. So yeah, scary stuff. So then add in all the other reasons, that's ignoring the rivet strength. So the fake chains, you could pop out the rivet much more easily than with the real one, in terms of using a chain breaker. The fake chains basically just fell apart when you're using a chain breaker on them. The authentic Shimano chain actually requires a bit of force with the chain breaker to move the rivet. So I'm wholly scared by the idea of fake chains being in the market, having done this test now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've got this saying going around in my head. And it's you speak to anybody who buys these kind of products, they go, it's just the same thing. It's the exact same thing. They just,
exactly. How different
the
can a chain be?
factory works 9 to 5 making them for the real brand, and then at night time they make this. And it's no, just no.
Yeah, you're just paying a premium for the brand.
No, you're paying a premium for your safety.
Yeah. So just, I mean, there's counterfeits of almost any popular product these days, or any popular brand. There's fake Chris King headsets, Garbrook cranks, Thompson seat posts, Ritchie handlebars, Shimano Ultegra pedals are now being counterfeited.
Trek helmets are a popular counterfeits around these parts.
Interesting. POC helmets
which
too.
I mean, why even bother wearing a helmet if you're going to wear a fake one?
Yes. So anyway, I think it's an article that I'm kind of proud of. I think it answers some questions, but it also highlights a bigger issue. And anyway, encourage you to check it out. Cool. All right, let's head on over to my chat with Zach Edwards for Ask a Wrench. Thanks to Will Jones of Red Bricks Media for the editing and mixing of this episode.